Good morning, everybody, and I wanted to thank you for your time for being here today. I believe everybody here is mostly Italian people, but for the sake of the recording, this thing is going to be in English anyway. Anybody that is not Italian, just for the sake of curiosity? All right, okay. So we just finished the lunch. So what I'm going to do for you first, I'm going to be showing the agenda of what I want to be talking about before the presentation. So in case you don't like it, you can just leave. I'm not going to get offended, but I want to make sure we're on the same page on this. So what I want to talk about with you today, first of all, is giving you some information of where are we at with the OpenAPI specification so far in terms of usages and tools that we have on the market, and then what's up, what is going on with OpenAPI at runtime in use cases and API gateway support, and then what we can do better on this side, because I do think there are a lot of missed opportunity that we should pursue somehow. Then, I had a live demo, but I don't have the adapter. This is actually not my computer. This was landed really in the last minute. So I'm going to be trying to show something, but it's not going to be complete. And in case you're interested, hit me up later. I can show you from my computer. It's going to be just fine. And, takeaways and questions. So that's what we're going to do today. I hope it's OK with you. I'm going to introduce myself a little bit. My name is Vincenzo Chianese. I am an Italian software developer, but I've been living away from the country for the last 5 years. I used to work for Oracle, actually, for 3 years in Czech Republic, and then I moved to Madrid. Right now, I'm a software developer at Stoplight. Anybody here knows what Stoplight is? Okay, it's an American company, and we do tools for API developers. So from having an idea to getting an API done, that's where we are in the game. So we provide a designer for OpenAPI and for other protocols as well. It's going to be part of the presentation also. I'm also the maintainer of Express Gateway. Anybody knows what this project is? Nice. It's actually the first time that somebody raises the hand. So Express Gateway is an open source API gateway written in JavaScript that I authored. And it's also going to be part of the Prezzo. And then I'm an Auth0 ambassador. So it's a group of people that Auth0 think they're good in their job. And I've been awarded for 2 years in a row. And I'm also a Google developer expert in web technologies in Spain, though, not in Italy. Those are my references. If you wanna write me up, website, Twitter, GitHub handle, email, and the handle is gonna be on the down of the presentation on the right for the whole time. So you have the time to write it up. Okay, now let's jump to the content. I'm assuming you guys are familiar with OpenAPI. What is OpenAPI? What is used for? Can I assume that, or everybody's familiar with OpenAPI, right? Nice. So if you go on the OpenAPI repository on GitHub, you do find, OpenAPI specification defines a standard for REST APIs to discover and understand the capabilities of a system. But also, the use cases for OpenAPI is generation of documentation, generation of SDK, automation and test cases, This is what the official repository of OpenAPI is advertising for. So this is why we have OpenAPI. And that's actually true, because so far, what we have been doing with this file, basically, is that you have this bunch of data, you give it to a system that can be Apiary or Stoplight or Apimatic. I mean, there are a lot of systems. What they do, they turn this file into an interactive documentation that your customer can use. And you can create a table of content, you can show the people what the request response will look like, you can give a client so that your customer can test it right now, linting, telling you what is wrong with your API ahead of the time, search. You have all those byproducts that you actually want. Client generation, content type, all this good stuff. Which is great. It's way better than give a raw file to somebody and he needs to figure out what is going on. The second use case that we saw with OpenAPI so far, it's the code generation. So again, you give to something this big file, and what's happening, it's going to be generated a client that you can give to your customer to talk with your API. And the reason why this is nice is that, first of all, the client is handling the base URL and the authentication. In this example in particular, all I needed to do was to require the library, give the API key that I have, and then all the initial connection and authentication, key exchange, it's all handled by the library itself. And also, you get automatic URL mapping. So if I want to create a new pet, I just need to call a function, and the URL construction with parameters, body, and query parameter, it's all handled automatically. In this case, I don't even know if this is going into the body or maybe as a query parameter. It's all handled by the library automatically. That's a great use case. That's something that we do want. We also have automatic success and error handling. In this case in particular, I have no idea if that error is a 404 or 403, 500, whatever code you want. You just know there is an error because, again, the library is taking care of that for you. So nice. Yet another use case that we saw so far is the automation of test cases. So you have the document that is describing your API, and you say, this is my implementation. Can you check it out if it's all working correctly? And you have tools such as Prism, Dread, all those tools on the market. What they do, they're going to check the OpenAPI with your implementation and report if anything goes wrong. In this case, the schema validation was failing, the file coverage, and all this good stuff. Last use case we saw so far, it's the linting. So somebody's going to analyze your OpenAPI document and tell, this is not respecting the standard, this is not respecting the best practices of the OpenAPI, and also custom rules. That's basically what it does. And in these regards, actually, we released Spectral. It's the open source linting engine which is powering the platform. And the idea is that, again, you can define your own rules for OpenAPI documents so that you can enforce practices and use cases that make sense for your business inside your company. And I think I can actually show you something on the fly. One of the things that I've been doing. Let's see if I can find it. It's over here. Yeah. One of the things I've been working on lately, I'm going to just enlarge this thing a little bit, is I can because I'm not logged in. Okay, hit me up later. But basically, what I did, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but GitHub has been releasing a new feature called Actions, and we've been integrating Spectral as a GitHub action so that you can see in real time into your code, into the code editor that GitHub is showing you what is wrong with your API. Again, I can show you later in real time if you want from my computer. I can't from this one in particular. All right, so we were talking about the linting. Check it out, Spectral, if you want. It's open source. It's probably going to be beneficial for you. But if we remember all the use cases I showed you so far, just recap it a little bit. First of all, documentation. The second one, client generation, linting, and automation of test cases. And if you think a little bit about those ones, they are just happening before the deployment of the API. So you create your OpenAPI specification, then you generate the SDK. That's for the customer. It's not my stuff. It's for the customer. Then automation of test cases, that's happening before the deployment. Linting happening before the deployment. The documentation, again, it's for the customer. It's not my stuff. So all the use cases for OpenAPI so far have been mostly before the deployment. And I've been asking myself a couple of times, what about the runtime? Why is not the OpenAPI leveraged at the runtime? I've been starting a little bit to look around and see, what is going on? What's the industry doing on these regards? And what are the use cases that I can do with such powerful thing? So what I was able to find on the market today is that you can find API monitoring solutions on top of OpenAPI, usage statistics, and analysis and feedback collection. But that was not what I was looking for. I didn't feel satisfied. I was thinking to a completely different thing. So again, I said, okay, I'm going to just check it out here anyway. And what I've been kind of understanding is that you have a customer on the left, and on the right, you have your server that is serving the API. So somebody is calling using your SDK your one of the methods that your API is offering, and then the client is transforming this function call into an HTTP call, then hits the server, and then when this is happening, you can start to collect statistics or the failing endpoints, the most common scenarios, and that's something. You have the source of truth with the OpenAPI document, and you can say, I understand, for example, most of the people are not using a specific endpoint that I've been exposing for the last 3 months. It means that maybe it's not documented well enough. I need to do something. Or maybe, 99% of the time, one of my customers is hitting a 404 because they're not using the API correctly. And that's what I call monitoring, collecting the statistics. But again, the point was, this is not what I was looking for. What about the operations? If we think about it, let's say you have an API deployed. You have an OpenAPI specification, which is describing the API. The test is passing. It's all good. It's good. But then, what if you need to roll out a new API section? So, for example, you have got a payment system, and then you open a completely new, different part of the business, such as new card type, and you create the API, but then you need to speak with your DevOps in the company to configure the API gateway to proxy the request in new API. And that's something that you right now you do manually. You talk with somebody, he's going to configure the thing and get back to you. What if an API, part of the API is deprecated? Again, that's not something that you can describe such use case in an OpenAPI document, but nobody can automate that. You need to speak with somebody in the company. Hey man, just get out this API section. We're not going to use it anymore. It's a manual step. Or what if the security requirements are changing in your app? So let's say that you want to open your API to the public for 3 months because you have an event, and so it's going to be public for everybody. You can do and specify such a thing in the OpenAPI document, but you can specify that in the OpenAPI document, but you can't automate that. Again, you need to speak with somebody in the company and say, change the security requirement in the API gateway, in our firewall, whatever guys you have. Or what if the validation rules are changing? You have an entity, and then one of the fields is not required anymore. You can specify that in your OpenAPI document, but you can't automate that. And also Redirects, that's yet another use case. And basically, today we don't have a solution for those use cases. We have a source of truth, but we don't have a way to automate that. And I've been starting to ask myself, why nobody cares? Why nobody wants to make this final effort and close the API lifecycle? Because if you think about it, if the document is not going into the runtime, it's going to just go away and get completely forgotten. So you designed it 3 years ago, and then it went in runtime, it's working properly. You need to make a small modification. You just change it on the fly on the code. You don't really update the OpenAPI document. And because it's not in the runtime, there is nobody forcing you to do that if you want to move further. And then I'd be starting again to ask, can we do something? What is going on? Is somebody even caring about this thing? And I said, actually, the API gateway is one of the places where this stuff can happen because it's on the edge of your organization. It can handle a lot of things. And also, although they are really complicated, the configuration surface is actually limited. So, an API gateway, it's not something that you program. It's something that you configure, which is way different. It's not programmable usually, but it's configurable. It means it's way easier. Probably it's declarative. That's my point. And also, most of the times, that is not always true, but the OpenAPI specification file is most of the time is matching what you're offering outside to your customers, right? And so there is a match. There is something that we can do. But before sitting down and say, I'm going to do this, I started to have a look to the other solutions on the market and see what is going on. Declarative configured, some of those. So the first choice that I went to look at is obviously the AWS API Gateway. It's probably one of the most famous ones that are hosted. And first of all, they do support OpenAPI 2, which is OK. They claim to support OpenAPI 3, but the support is incomplete. It's actually not working yet completely. They have proprietary extensions to express what the OpenAPI document can't, but what they don't have it's a document upload API. So if you have an OpenAPI document and you want to give it to the API gateway that AWS is offering, you need to manually click upload and click upload button. So there is no automation at all. And I really don't get it. I don't understand why they do let you make the manual upload, but they don't offer any API to do that. So no automation opportunity for AWS. Let's go to the next one. I went to the Axway. Axway is a really big company in France that is offering this API gateway. Let's check it out. They have OpenAPI 2 support. They don't support any proprietary extension. They have a public API for the configuration, but it's not clear what you can do with that. But they don't have any upload API at all. So again, you need to manually click, put it there, click upload, wait for the processing, and it's good to go. You can't automate that. Then I went to see Apigee. Apigee was a company that's been acquired by Google for a lot of money, 500 million if I recall correctly, and they're doing gateways as primary job. And I said, yeah, they must have it. I didn't even get what OpenAPI support they have, if it's 2 or 3, I believe it's 2. They have no documented extension. They have a project upload API, but the source of truth is a set of proprietary files. So the OpenAPI file, yeah, give it to me and just store it somewhere. All right, so hosted solution, not a great deal. Let's go ahead, and the situation doesn't seem to be better in the other solutions. So Express Gateway, well, I did it, but it doesn't support this thing. Then I went to see Kong, and there is an open issue since 2015 that they want to do that, but I haven't seen any effort. And I went to see Tick, and they don't do that. No. And so I said, okay, apparently, I may be wrong, maybe I didn't explore all the alternatives. Apparently, nobody's doing that. Nobody's offering any kind of complete automation to close the API lifecycle so that if I make a change in my OpenAPI document, those changes will be reflected in my API gateway or whatever system I have. And so I said, okay, I want to try. So I made this project a little bit of time ago, and it's not a pet project. Just to give you an idea, has been trusted by several companies there on the market. You know, Joyent, it's not really the last company. The Linux Foundation, just 2 days ago. And so this is just to give you an idea, this is not a toy project. And it's something that the people have been asking for. And then I said, okay, let's see what can we do here. Now, the idea was to show you a demo. But again, unfortunately, my computer is not collaborating. But what I can show you, though, is what I had in mind. Let's go here again. Oh, no. Yeah. So I'm going to be showing some of the code, unfortunately, but I can't really show the real flow. So what I had in mind, what I did was I have a project, which, again, I can show you later if you want to come here later, so don't worry about it. But the idea was I have an OpenAPI document which is hosted somewhere. It's in Stoplight, it's in Apiary, it's in any of your platform of choice for API design. And then you make a change. This change gets propagated to somewhere in your CI environment. I think I can actually show the CI environment here, maybe. I just need to find the URL, though. Let's see if that's the pattern. Hold on. Yeah, no internet. Anyway, I'm going to be showing you later. Just come here and I show you. But the basic idea, again, was you have your source of truth, you make a change, the change gets propagated into your CI environment, in this case was Circle CI, and then the Circle CI environment will run the test of your OpenAPI document against the implementation, and once that is happening, it's talking with the administration API that Express Gateway is offering to change the rules of the API gateway, like rolling a new API section, or changing the validation rules, changing the security requirements. Again, I can show you it here later, not right now, unfortunately. All right, and so my takeaways from this experience was, first of all, I think you probably noticed that this, most of the tooling hasn't caught up with OpenAPI 3.0. You know, RPG, no, not at all. AWS is doing something, but not yet there. Axway, not at all. And I don't understand, honestly, if that's because it's difficult or OpenAPI just not spread yet. Maybe OpenAPI 2 is good enough. You know, it's fulfilling my use case, and I don't want to migrate. And the second one, that's what I think we need to really change, is that it's clear that OpenAPI is not a first-class citizen for API gateways. Most of the times, it's just a check mark. Like, we have OpenAPI, but we're not going to do anything with that. And I don't get it. Probably because they don't care. And I think this is because they want to lock you in. You know, if you go AWS and you want to migrate to another solution, if it's proprietary and it's not standardized with OpenAPI, well, good luck, because it's not going to be that easy, and it's going to be a manual process, and you don't even have a way to test that you have been configuring both the API gateway to behave in the same way. So that's one of the reasons, I think. Or maybe that might be another idea, is that OpenAPI is not the right tool for the job. Like, OpenAPI is not the tool we should use to configure an API gateway. Another thing that is actually super clear is that OpenAPI documents alone are not enough. For example, let's say that your API supports CORS. How do you specify that in OpenAPI? You can't. There is no way to do that. And also, clearly, the security requirements are not complete. There are a lot of use cases that cannot be fulfilled just using OpenAPI documents. And that's why maybe it's time for the specification to be expanded yet another time, but we'll see about that. That's all I have. Again, I had a demo that I wanted to show you, but unlucky day. If you have any question, I'm happy to take all of those. And for those of you that are interested, I'm going to be here for a while, and I can show you the stuff from my computer. Thank you again for your time.